Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Christina Caesar, and I apologize in advance if I stumble over anything because I'm not used to being on camera for these. But I manage marketing and communications at Synergy Technical, and I have the honor of introducing today's speaker and moderating today's session. Today's webinar is on quick wins with Microsoft Teams. And just a reminder, today's webinar is being recorded, and please drop any comments or questions in the Q&A function within Teams. Before Adrian gets started, just a little bit about us. Synergy Technical is an IT consulting firm headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. We have clients in over 70 countries and all 50 states, I think. And we have over 3 million licenses of Microsoft 365 for our clients through our licensing and managed services practice. And now to present the amazing Adrian Amos.
Woo! All right, and the crowd goes wild. So we've been doing security and productivity immersion experiences for years now. I think it's actually like right at 6 years that we've been going around doing these events. And Teams has been a big part of that in almost all of that amount of time. Teams is a little over 5 years old. So what I've noticed in all the times that we've been doing the productivity immersion experiences is that we're going along, we're having a great time, we're talking about ways that we've always done things, we're improving processes with email, and then we hit Teams. And it kind of slows down for a second because while more and more people are using Teams as time goes on, what we're finding is that a lot of folks are still using Teams very much as we used Skype for Business years ago. And that means that, you know, when you ask somebody, hey, are you comfortable? Are you using Teams? They say, yes, absolutely. I have lots of video calls on Teams every week. And you're like, okay, well, that's great. What else are you doing with Teams? And that's where it kind of derails for a minute, right? So what starts as a discussion about productivity and all these great gains and everything sort of becomes a paint by numbers discussion of what are all the functions and components of Teams. That then turns into governance workshops around how to organize teams and all this other stuff. So what we wanted to do with this particular session was kind of go back and look at some of the more common use cases and business challenges that we see people trying to solve, and talk about how they are generally native capabilities within Teams, and that Teams itself is a lot more than just Skype or Skype for Business. Mm-hmm. So with all of that said, let me put a caveat in place, and that is that it's going to be very difficult to show you some of my favorite features in Teams while I'm actually using Teams to do this, which means that I can't show you some of the really cool like things that you can do in a meeting, like having like using an external camera, which by the way, we're doing, right? We're using an external camera in Teams, and we can switch cameras back and forth very easily, but it's hard to show you that. So we're going to kind of skip some of the cool stuff about like mapping a whiteboard and all that fun stuff, and we'll figure out how to share that with you in a more meaningful way later because it is really awesome. But what I want to do is kind of jump in and show you kind of like how we generally see organizations rolling into Teams and how to drive adoption to deliver quick business productivity gains so that users can get up and running and that you can actually go back and verify and see that they're actually using the tools that we're buying for them. So it starts with a chat, right? And a chat
seems so simple, but it's not.
It does seem so simple, right? But the reality is that all of Teams is built around the idea of chats. Whether we're looking at Teams chats or conversations or the content of any given team, the concept is the same. It all starts with a chat. So I am going to switch over to my other view here, and I've got my demo Windows 365 machine. I've got my core user here, Annemiek van Vleuten, is logged into her Teams environment. And she's got another user who's also got an in-private tab open in Edge. And we're going to do some stuff with a team. So we start, as chats. So I've got all these chats over here, and these are one-to-one, or they can even be one-to-many chats, right? If I've had a conversation going on with a member of my organization, I can send them a message. I can come in here and I can format the message. I can do all this kind of fun stuff, and that's all fairly rudimentary. But maybe I've got a situation where I need to share a file with a user, or I need to understand how I'm associated with that user, or where even in my organization I've interacted with that user. I can click on activity and I can see places and times where we may have interacted in the same teams, in the same chats, in the same channels, all this kind of fun stuff. So I'm not hunting in 1,000 different places to get back up to where I was when I was last working with Carl. Now, I did have a conversation with Sabina this morning. And Sabina and I were working on some files. And, you know, again, I could come over here and I could look for file history, but I actually have in this chat more than just the chat, right? The chat itself contains files that we have shared back and forth. And that is probably one of the single most important and prevalent use cases we see for moving away from email methodologies into Teams, right? With email, I might send you an attachment. Then you might make a change to the attachment and you send it back. Well, now that's 2 separate emails with 2 separate attachments, and now we've got a version control problem. With Teams, these are the actual files. I have shared this file, and now I can go back to this particular file and I can make changes to it. And it's persistent, right? As long as I have this chat with Sabina, which is not going to go away, it's not going to expire, unless we force it to, but that's another conversation for governance later on. We can actually get in here and open this file directly and natively within Teams, because again, Teams is more than just Skype for Business. Teams actually has native integrated viewers and editors for almost all of the core Office products. So now I'm actually inside this file, looking at this file, working on it. I can see that I've made notes in here, and I can actually see that Sabina is actually also in the file as well. So we're actually able to do some real-time co-authoring, not just in the chat outside the file, but now we're actually meaningfully engaged with each other, working on this file together. I can see that she's on page 5, and if I click on her little hover card, I can actually hit go to location, and Teams will take me directly to the spot where she is working on the file. Now it's going to take a second for my computer because I am on a tragically under-provisioned.
He's on an old Windows.
It's a small SKU Windows 365 environment. So, you know, there we go. And now I can see exactly where her cursor is. I can see that Sabina is actually typing in this thing here. And right here from within the file edit itself, if I need to say, hey, can we pause the edits? I'm getting ready to present this thing live. I can say, hey, can we pause the edits? And then that's going to not just appear in the conversation for the file, but if I actually close the document and go back to my chat here, that all of that information is surfaced back up into the chat. See, there we go. So now Sabina and I are working real time. We've been working inside the file as viewed in my list of files. I can actually get to and see where Sabina and I relate to each other in the organization. It looks like she reports through a different channel, but I can get information about how to get in touch with her supervisor. Not to say that she's done anything wrong, but if she's unavailable and I need someone to help me immediately, I can reach out to her supervisor and get connected to somebody else who can get me up and running very quickly. So all of these things, just the chat, the files, the activities, the people who they relate to, make me able to get the results that I need much, much more quickly. And if I desperately need to be able to work on this thing the next time we come back, I can actually take this file and make it a separate tab within this chat. So there's a lot more things that are happening. Now I actually have an additional way to natively interact with this file, with Sabina, have the editing things here. I can see all the conversation that's going on with it. I can actually even pull it out into the desktop app if I need to. But then I can also add more stuff. Like I can just keep making this chat itself more and more and more robust. And I can add dozens, hundreds of different applications to this. I can pin a website. We can do all this different stuff. We can take a specific, presentation that we want to work on together and actually tie it right in here so that she and I can get back up and running day after day, whatever we need to do. And then when we decide that, you know what, this is bigger than the two of us, we really need to call in some extra help, we can actually add people to the chat. I've got an additional chat right here that was started with 2 or 3 people, and you can see that when I created this chat and I added people to it, I was able to actually pin the chat. So if I come over here and hit the ellipsis, I can pin it so it pops up. I can mute it if I really need to just like catch some time away from it. I can actually even say notify when available. So like if I had noticed that Sabina was not in and I desperately needed to work with her, I can actually set up a notification to ping me instantly when she's online. Now, This particular chat, I needed additional help. So I wanted to pull somebody else in. Well, we pulled in George Hincapie and Carl Edwards, and I can actually add additional people in too. And as I'm adding them in, I'm going to pull Sabina into this. Okay, we were already having a chat about this, but you know what? A couple days ago, we said something that maybe wasn't really for her eyes. So we're just going to give her 1 day of chat history, right? So as she gets into this chat, she's going to be able to get up to speed with the files, with the pinned information, with the tabs across the top, but she's only going to have access to the amount of chat history that we want her to have. And I can come through here and I can change the name of the chat. I can make it all kinds of fun, silly stuff. And again, I can pin it, I can add it, I can mute it, I can do all kinds of fun things, but I can also decide that it's time for us to have a call right now out of this chat. And now I've got multiple people that are involved here too. So I'm actually making a little bit of an assumption about their availability, but I can start a video call directly with these people. I can start a voice call directly with these people. I can even start a screen sharing session directly with these people. So this is all just a chat, right? This is all, we haven't even talked, exactly, we haven't even talked about a team yet. And literally
I'm cracking up because like my face, I'm sure if we look back at this recording, I'm like dumbfounded by like the random things that I've learned, and I like use Teams every day.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So again, we can get all this information, and I can actually drop files in here from anywhere that I want to. I can, add attachments here as the user. I can upload them from my computer or add them directly from OneDrive. But a chat is so much more than just text, right? Now, obviously, chats are not what Teams is all about, because Teams is all about, oh, wait a minute, I forgot one more thing. This was one of my favorite things that got dropped this summer. You can chat with yourself. And that sounds just as absolutely ridiculous as it probably is. It is a very new feature. I actually love it because one of the things that I get myself stuck into is that as I'm going through my day, I'm checking all my chats, I'm checking all my teams.
I'm constantly like writing stuff on like Notepad or like writing stuff down, but like Teams, like
I'm always
like
forgetting.
All my to-dos, I write them down.
I'm always forgetting to go back and do additional things. Well, since Loop, which is the newest component of the Office product suite and doesn't yet have its own tool set, it actually surfaces natively into Teams chats. I can actually do like some OneNote kind of level stuff right here as a loop list, send it to myself, and I can actually take that and embed it into other documents all over the place, and I get live updates. So a loop component is a live embeddable component, that you can take with you and stuff into other places, right?
Well, that's the thing. I didn't know that was a thing.
There you go. Yeah. So I can send myself notes. I can keep track of things that I need to do. This is not quite meant to be like a replacement for a task list. There's another thing for that, right? Obviously, Planner. But you can do all this great stuff, send yourself notes. And for me, it just really helps because I have a tendency to forget to check other streams, right? I know I've got other things coming in. I can put things in here, and I can also know that even when I go home and I've got my phone, all I need to do is open Teams and I've got all my stuff right in my chat. So, okay. Chat with yourself is pretty cool. It's probably super nerdy. It probably reminds me a little bit too much of myself walking down the hall in high school and talking to myself.
Here we go.
But when it's time to progress from a chat to a team itself, we then have to make some decisions, right? And this is where we start to see organizations falter a little bit, right? Because the question becomes in almost every situation, well, how do we arrange our teams? What's the right way to arrange our teams? And we see folks doing things like, okay, well, is there a company-wide team? Do we do it by department? We have several stores. Do we do a team for each store? We have locations. We have divisional boundaries. What's the right way? And the mindset that we have to try to move away from as admins is the mindset we need to move away from is treating all of this as if it's an overlay of Active Directory, right? So, all of us who've done organizational units in Active Directory nested everything beautifully so that you have your organization, your top tier divisions, then your departments, then your, and all falls down, and group policy all applies. None of that is relevant. Azure Active Directory is flat, and it's flat on purpose so that we don't go back down these rabbit holes of organizing everything into organizational units. What we can do is all of it, right? The limits for, yeah, right? The limits for the number of teams are so astronomically large. Although they used to not be, and we did have a customer once call us and say we found that limit. They're in the hundreds of thousands of teams that you can make. Now, I'm not encouraging anybody to just like, you know, take the reins off and say go for it, make a team for every Tuesday. But you can absolutely, and you probably will have teams that match your departments. You probably will have teams for your whole company. You probably will have a team for a given location, right? And that's actually really convenient because what's the number one email challenge that we used to present in our productivity CIEs was donuts in the break room.
Yes.
Right? There's donuts in the break room, and I just sent out a system broadcast to 3,000 employees globally.
Half would be on PTO.
Which break room? Right?
Where?
Yeah, exactly.
Or you get all the out of office replies.
Yeah, and then somebody has to reply all to the company saying this is deeply inappropriate, right?
Yeah.
I'm not, yeah, exactly. So if we can keep our conversations that pertain to a group of people associated with that group of people, then we're going to succeed. We're going to have much greater success than if we just blast it to the company and wait for the inevitable repercussions of that. Now, we have divisions, we have departments, we have projects, we have clients, we have all sorts of different ways, and arguably they're all correct, right? Because the concept of a team is not the way that we've done it in Active Directory, where you have all of your HR people in a group, and you have all of your project managers in a group, and you have all of your functionals in a group, and then you try to argue over whose department server gets the new project, right? What we're doing is we're saying, okay, these people across this organization need the same amount of access to a certain amount of data. They're going to build a new product. In our demo environment here, we have the CX500 R4 product, right? It doesn't matter what department those people are coming from. They all have a role to play. There's going to be marketing involved. There's going to be engineering involved. There's going to be quality involved. And we need to be able to bring those people to the data and have them be able to interact equally with the data. And then some of them, their component or their role in the production of that data will naturally expire. They won't need to be there anymore. Yeah. And then they can opt to leave the team or to mute the team. And so when they need to come in, they can do something and they can peace out. Now, yeah, that's fine.
No, so I appreciate that because I have definitely their projects, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, just like with our chats, our teams are going to be organized very similarly, but with a whole lot more stuff, right? So now we've decided, okay, we're going to have a CX500 R4 team. Everybody across all these different divisions and departments is going to be able to get in here too. I'm going to even add my CIO so they can get in here and track whatever that they need to be able to present to the board. Fine, no big deal. It's going to start with a chat, just exactly as it did with our individual chat that progressed to a group chat. Well, this is now a team chat, and we're going to have that chat inside of a channel. And our team is going to be broken down into multiple channels. And then, whoa, we got to throw the brakes on again because, okay, now we talked about how to organize the teams. Now, how do we organize the channels? And again, there is no wrong answer. Every team by default gets a general channel, and that's as much as you ever need, depending on the project that you're working on. You can also break down things into into sub channels. But every one of those channels is going to start with a bunch of pinned content across the top. It's going to always start with posts. It's going to always have files, and it's generally going to have a wiki, though that is going away as a configurable thing. And just like with our chats, we can add lots of, what's that?
Wiki's going.
The wiki, yes.
What?
Yes, the wiki, yeah, the default. So by default, it will still be there, but admins will be able to turn off.
Like I told y'all from the intro, like I'm learning this with y'all, but like.
Yeah. Well, because for 5 years, literally everybody clicked on the wiki and said, "What's this for?" Yeah. And I have been a wiki apologist for a long time and said, is it being
replaced with something or just?
It is, as a matter of fact, but not directly. So the wiki has traditionally been the place where you put important information to get up to speed about what's going on in the team or the channel. But we can decide that a thing here is important enough that it should be pinned. So I can now pin this to the top of the channel, and now everybody who comes here will have that as a pinned message that they can see. So realistically, the purpose for the wiki is now functionally replaced by pinning content to the top of the channel. So there you go, right?
Thanks.
Yeah, you can use the wiki if you want to. You don't have to make it go away, but if you don't like the wiki, just like every other tab up here, you can remove the wiki, you can remove a tab. There's nothing stopping you from doing that if you are an owner of the team. So our teams may reflect our projects, they may reflect our departments, our channels may reflect the people who have to participate in those channel in the team and how they operate. I may need for the CX500 project to have a marketing arm, right? And my engineers probably don't care super much about how it's being marketed, but the marketing people want to know that when they deliver their materials, they're all in the same place with the project itself so it can go out the door, right? So all of our documentation functionally lives in one place. Our team is able to operate as one group. And just like with the chat, there's also going to be files associated with this. And these by default live in SharePoint, although they don't have to. And I may be getting ahead of myself. I'll go back to my slide deck and see, yes, the team uses data. There we go. All right, so that data by default, as I said, is in SharePoint. And when we do our productivity discussions and we talk about teams, we do discuss the fact that there is this files tab right here. And this is your personal file storage that is presented into teams. And so I'm actually going to talk about that before I go into how a team uses it, because I really like the idea of starting small. What affects me, then how do I affect the group? So the files section in Teams is probably one of the handiest things in the entire daggone world, right? It's not just what are the files that I have access to in my OneDrive. It's not also just what are the files that I have access to in Teams, although it is that as well. In fact, trying to remember what team you were working on a document in can be an extreme vexation. So just coming up to Teams and looking at or your files and hitting Teams, you can see the files that you own, the files that have been modified by others, where they are, and get back to them very quickly. But you also have this recent documents thing too, right? So it doesn't matter what file or what directory it was in. Yes, sure, I've got access to it. Maybe it's in the downloads here on my actual computer, but recently I was working on these files. And so everything is about getting me back to where I was very quickly. And speaking of getting back to where I was very quickly, we do have these navigational buttons. And Microsoft added a tool, really a neat thing a few months ago where you could go like 12 actions back. They now actually have surfaced the list of what those actions are. So if there was a file that you had open earlier and you want to get back to it, you literally can just roll right down to that spot, click on it, and it'll take you right back to that file. So here are my files, right? Here is my cloud storage. I can actually add additional cloud storage. So one of the challenges that we hear organizations dealing with is saying, listen, Teams is great, we've bought it, but we have like 6 or 7 years worth of investment in Dropbox or Box or whatever. Okay, that's fine. And you don't even really have to start with a plan to migrate that content into SharePoint or into OneDrive. Users can just add that content. They can map those locations directly into their teams. And I did mention that I got my good buddy Carl Edwards over here, and he actually happens to be a web-based only version or web-based user of Teams, and he has actually already pre-mapped his Google Drive content into Teams. So that information is available to him in Teams wherever he is. And in fact, I was doing a chat earlier with another user and went to right-click and add a file, and Google Drive popped up immediately as an available source because it is natively mapped into his Teams client. And this is just web version. Installed version, doesn't really matter which way we're going about it. We can add that cloud storage to these conversations and to our own available stuff. But it gets better than that too, because Within the team itself, we talked about how the file storage is in SharePoint, and that also means then we get really cool stuff like, 500 levels of version history and all this really cool stuff too. And I can synchronize the SharePoint library to my actual computer so that as I'm going about my day, right, as I make files or make changes to files, I'm going to be able to see here's the content of the files from that repository. So I've got them available with me wherever I go. I'm synchronizing this. But I can also open it in SharePoint, or again, I can add additional cloud storage. So we talked about that long-term investment in Box. Well, if your users are comfortable working in Box, that's where they're saving their files, then there's no reason why you can't just surface that Box repository directly into your team's channel and have your users up and running with it exactly as they have always been. And again, there's all these different flavors of cloud storage that are out here.
I hope every attending spaces is dumbfounded as mine.
Yeah, because
I don't mean to like look. My face shows every expression, and I'm sitting here like, what?
Yeah,
yeah, you can do this.
Yeah, and with the conversation, we talked about pinning a file directly into the top so that one or two or three people can get back up and running with it. But I can actually also pin files inside of the files repository here so that they show up as being key files for the document or for the project here. So I can, let's see, I can pin to top here. That's going to put that up here too. So now anybody who's in this project is going to be aware that these are key working documents. But I've decided that maybe that's not enough, right? So I've got my conference room Adams thing, and I have decided to come in and make this a tab right here, and that's actually what pins it up here. And just like we had apps that we could also add to our chat, we can add hundreds or even thousands of applications to our team. And actually the list of apps that we can add to a team is even greater than the list of apps we can add to a chat. So this obviously brings up a question then of, okay, I've got this rich content history in my chat and I've got a lot of people in it. Can I turn it into a team? And unfortunately, you can't, because, well, there was a user voice for it and I went looking for it and it doesn't seem to be there anymore. But if you'd like to see that capability, I would strongly encourage.
I would love.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I would love that.
But principally, what we can do with both a team and a chat is replicate very similar functionality, except that the team itself gets the additional channels. And one really neat capability that we have with Teams is that we can actually create a private channel. So I did say that you're generally going to want to start with enabling a group of people to have a common set of security controls to gain access to a common set of data. But that is not always the way that we want things to work, right? Sometimes we want to have people be able to work on a skunkworks project, right? The CX500 R4, we all know is going to come out, but the engineers are needing to keep things a little close to their chest, right? Because we don't want some silly marketing goon to just get a hold of the Visio diagrams and send them over to the competitor for whatever reason.
What I hate the most is that was valid. Yeah, don't give me don't give me because I'll break.
So I can absolutely create a channel that is only available to a subset of my people, right? So my channel or my team itself is then going to need specific levels of management that exceed those of a chat. So I can come in here, and when I hit manage the team, I'm going to automatically be presented with a list of the owners, automatically be presented with a list of members and guests. And you can see right up here at the top of the list here that this team is already calling out that it has guests. So we're talking about, we're sharing data. We want to make sure that we're sharing it securely. In fact, that might even be, there we go. Share it securely, even with guests was my next.
Even with guests.
Even with guests, right?
Guests.
So in this case, I have my 3 owners. I'm going to be able to see who my guests are. And for the most part, these are all internal members, and I can decide that, you know what, George just doesn't participate to the level I really need him to. I can drop him down to being a member. And Sabina, she's been super on the ball with helping us out lately, doing a lot of proactive work. So we're going to promote her to being an owner. I'm doing all this right now, real time, right? This is, it's just happening. But I also have me, actually me as a guest. And I can tag what my people are actually doing in this environment, right? So I can come in here and I can say what Daryl's role is to this, and I can create a bunch of tags. But when I have guests, I think it's pretty important to be able to identify vendor versus client versus whatever, right? So we can actually get in here quickly and see what these people are, what their role is, how they pertain to it. But again, we did say that we can create private channels so that some subset of people can work on things. I can add a channel, and as I'm adding a channel, I'm automatically asked, what is the privacy level for this? Is it standard as in everyone on the team has access, which is what we had for the first couple of years only that teams existed. I can make it a private team so that only specific people have access, and shared from org and other orgs to have access. So this private one is really interesting too, because once I come in here and I just give it a name.
I'm trying to figure out which screen I can like see the. If y'all see me like look in a bunch of directions.
Here you go. All right. So once I hit create, it's going to ask me who I should have access, who should be able to have access to it. But I can get in here, I can create this, and now it's going to ask me who the people are, right? So let's see. Smokey Unix going to have access, and Daryl. There we go. These guys are going to have access to this private sub channel. This is where the engineers are going to put their documents. Because look, no wiki.
Nope.
No wiki. Yeah. Their file storage is being automatically created right now in SharePoint on the back end. They don't have to do any of this stuff. They don't have to map any of it. If they want to, though, if their stuff is so super duper ooper schmooper secret that they have to have it in some sort of third-party cloud storage, maybe it's because it's actually generated by another vendor and shared with them, right? So now we can actually add that in and make it the native cloud storage for this particular team. And if I go back and look at my team members and discuss the fact that I, Adrian Amos, am a member of this team in another organization, it's important to note that I, Adrian Amos, don't have access to any other team in that organization unless I have been explicitly added to that team. So my guest account in this environment does not give me access to anything other than that which I have been explicitly granted access. And that goes back to the discussion of how do I organize my teams in the first place? Who are the people with the common set of access requirements? If it is a project and that project is for a client, do I invite the client in to be able to participate in the project and see the working documents? Or do I assign the team to the department? Yeah, exactly, right? So you get back to it starts with defining who are the people that have the common need for access. All right. Okay. So a little bit of a neat capability that popped up here recently. Teams got an integration with Microsoft Sentinel, where if you are dealing with an incident in Sentinel, which is a security solution, so we're kind of stepping off the productivity side a little bit. Except we're going back to where my happy place is around security. Yeah. So
that's where my brain goes.
That's all right. I'm going to do a private window
with y'all.
Yeah. I'm going to log into my Sentinel. Oh, if I can remember how to do it.
I was going to say, you're a security expert.
Yeah, you'd think I would be able to do this.
Can you log into your...
All right.
Come on. And you got this.
Microsoft Sentinel. Okay. It's all right. I'm getting there. All right. So I'm going to dig down and look at my incidents in Sentinel. And I want to give it a little bit more screen here too. Oh no, I've got this multi-stage incident that appears to be occurring. Okay. And I can see that its status is new. I want to go investigate it in Microsoft Defender. But you know what? Frankly, I'm a SOC analyst and I want to have other people who are more involved in the actual, like in the operational side, go and do their part of it too. Maybe I need someone to pull some logs. Maybe I need someone to, look at a firewall. Maybe I need to pull all these people in. Well, actually in the ticket itself, in the incident itself, I have the ability down here in the bottom corner to create a team. And this is going to create a team name that will match this group of people, or match the name of the incident, sorry. I've already pre-selected a favorite group for dealing with this sort of thing, and I'm going to create this team. And that is going to show up in the teams list for all of the people who are members of the security analyst group. You don't have to do it that way. You can add specific users. You can do whatever you want to, however you want to name it. But once that is done, it's going to take a couple of minutes, but I'm going to have a team show up that's going to match the name of that specific incident. And my user is then going to be able to get in and start working directly with those folks who are on that team. While I'm waiting for that, there's one other really cool thing that you can do here too, and that is I can look for teams that I am not yet a member of, right? The annual Christmas party or whatever particular thing we want to do. This is a public team. I can have people come and go. People want to know about the party. Maybe they don't want to know about the party. But what's cool here is that HR plans it, okay? It's their jam. They want to talk about the annual Christmas party, right? So they can come in, hit the little edit button here too. And now they have a button here that says post in multiple channels. Now this is HR's thing that they're doing, but they're going to come in here and say that they're going to start planning the Christmas party. And let's see. Oh, I actually probably have to join the team first. I haven't done that. So HR is not a member of that particular team. So I will join the annual Christmas party team. Got ahead of myself. Join it.
Is that a new feature?
No, it's been here for a while. The cross-posting?
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've been able to cross-post for a while. All right, so there we go. There's my annual Christmas party team. And I'm going to put a note in both the team that I'm in right now, which is the HR general, and also in the annual Christmas party general. It'd say time to start planning. No time like August to plan for Christmas.
It's Christmas in July.
Well, you go to the mall,
Well.
the trees will already be up in a couple of weeks. So I'm not too far ahead of things here. But now, so I've made this post here in the HR channel. And if I come down here to the annual Christmas party channel, it's already automatically there as well. So if I've got information that's relevant to multiple teams, I can easily get it to those multiple teams. And it isn't just one or two, you can add several to it. While we're on the subject of joining and creating teams, though, we also have the ability to create teams with templates. So we've decided who are the group of people that need common access to a set of resources. We have decided that they are going to be doing a particular type of work. And we can very quickly come in here, pick a template, and start building out teams based on that template. So let's say that we're doing a hospital healthcare thing here. What it's going to do is it's automatically going to pre-select channels and applications that are generally going to have relevance for that particular industry, for that particular type of workload. And when I hit next, it's going to go through the process of asking me, is it private or public? It's healthcare, so it's probably private. We're going to, give it a name. And we can customize the channels if we want to. We can leave it exactly as it is out here. And then I can start creating the team. Now, that's it for me for right now. It's going to go in the background and it's going to add all those applications to the team. It's going to start framing out the channels. And I can close this and move on with my day and do other stuff. So we have lots of different ways to create lots of different teams. We have lots of ways to join teams. We can decide that, this HR stuff is a little bit much. I can hide it. I don't want to get access to it, but oh yeah, I forgot. The way we've always done things.
Oh yeah, guys. Oh yeah.
Right. So one of the main use case scenarios that I love presenting is onboarding new employees, right? So we built out the HR team as an actual template for onboarding new employees. Yeah, but one of the things that we do in email as a cardinal sin every year is we send out forms and policies. Every single year, you're going to get your employee handbook, sign and return, right? Every single year, you're going to get updated information about insurance, all that stuff. It gets updated and you got to go and sign for it and say you saw it. But what happens if all that stuff was sent out on January 1 and you hire a new person January 2? Now, you probably have a process in place that says send them all the forms. But why? Why not just have them go to the policies and handbooks team or policies and handbooks channel?
I'm gonna say our
and
company is, we have a channel for it, right?
Yeah, we do actually. Yeah, and we have all of our history in here too. So you know what? Put the employee handbook here, pin it as a tab, do whatever you want to with it. And this also allows you to do fun things like tracking information about it. You know, who's engaging with this? What kind of information do you have? Do you want to have them like just sign a list here on the thing, or actually even add a SharePoint list saying like, I've seen it, right? I can come through here and just add a form, a SharePoint list as a form and say, acknowledge that you've seen it. And I can go down through and track and see exactly who all has it. But I can also do that with a million other things too, right? I could do it as any sort of list that I want to. But absolutely love the idea of not sending emails with a million attachments out to all the people in your organization as you hire them. And then you get into the trouble of people saying, well, I looked in the handbook and it doesn't say that. Well, yeah, okay, but you've also been with the company for 9 years and you never delete email. You're looking at a very old version, right? So we can eliminate all of that and still maintain the version history through SharePoint and simply surface the most recent version up to our users. Really simplify and decomplicate this process. And HR is not something that people are generally going to want to interact with on a day-to-day basis, so they can just hide that, you know? And if they want to get back to it, they can get back to it pretty quickly and easily. So
nifty.
That's kind of, and but wait, there's more. One last thing that I always forget to talk about is that we go into meetings in a physical space and everybody goes and hunts around for the HDMI cable to connect to the big TV and everything.
I did that for this this meeting.
Literally. But you can actually cast Teams directly to an external device. So if you have something like a Chromecast, or the little Microsoft dongle, you can cast Teams to that rather than having a cord that is now an OSHA hazard, right? So yeah, absolutely.
I feel like everyone on this webinar is like looking at my mind-blowing face every time they say it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wait, and one more.
Wait, then why don't we use that in the big TV in the conference room?
Why don't we use that in the big TV in the conference room? I'm asking you legitimately.
The answer was we're going to start using that in the conference room. Is what we just figured out.
And so again, we were talking about managing the team, right? And we were talking about, you know, the guests who are here and all this kind of fun stuff. Kind of the last thing I want, actually, let me get you one that's got some real analytics on it. Kind of the last thing that we really want to touch on is we want to ensure that our users are actually interacting with our content in a meaningful way. It's fantastic that we can put content out here, but we want to know that users are actually touching that content. And every team has an analytics tab. So we can come in here and we can see who our active users are over the last 7 days, the last 30 days, last 90 days. We can actually dig down into go and hit specific sub channels of this if we want to. And actually you can also right click on any one of the channels and do the same thing as well and get to its analytics. But we can see, and it's just kind of timing out right here, but I promise it does have actual meaningful information and it will show you really cool things like, are your users, and I totally forgot this too. Are your users having meetings inside the channels? Users having meetings inside the channels. All right.
Yes, I've done it.
Have you done it? All right. So the meeting is over, right? Or the meeting is getting ready to exist. And we want to get some information in so that we can discuss it in the meeting. Well, I created a meeting yesterday, but I made sure to create the meeting, schedule the meeting inside this channel. So now everybody who is going to be participating on this meeting can see that it exists, but they can also send things in to discuss it in advance. And as users engage with the meeting chat while it's live, that then shows up here as well. And after the meeting is over, users can continue to participate in the chat natively viewed in the actual Teams channel. So we don't have this stuff where somebody has to be a designated note taker and write down all the things that got posted in here. It's just there and it just comes with us. Yeah. So when we schedule a meeting, whether we do it here natively or we hit meet and that then calls everybody who has membership in the team, and maybe that's not the way you want to do things. We can go into the calendar itself, and when we create a new meeting, and you can see it looks like Annemiek is supposed to be involved in a meeting right now. That's great. I can actually add this meeting directly to a channel. So whether I schedule my meetings from inside the chat view or schedule my meetings from here, I'm going to be able to see all of this all the locations, all the things that I can do, all the places where I can add this meeting, so that my users can get back to that meeting chat history, see it in line with their other chats, and be able to reference it and keep on talking about this conversation even after the party is over. So the party is never over.
The party's never over.
That's right. That's why we're going to set repeating every day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's see. All right. Yes, team members can see or owners can see if members are actually engaged. So we talked about the metrics that are in there. I sure would love for that actually to come up and show you, because it is really cool too. Like, you know, this whole thing about, whoops, let me close that. Let me come back. Live and die by demo. All right. So I'm going to jump back in real quick and just talk about the metrics. If I can get them to load this time, it would be super awesome. And again, we can go by channel if we want to.
Well, you just say
see my active users, right? I can see where users are having meetings inside the channels if I want to. Maybe if I come down here and actually do it in the general piece here, I can see if users are directly engaging with my content. Is really the point, right? So we want to make sure that users are actually doing the work in this space. It's all well and good to give them teams, but if they keep trying to make it work in email, are we really improving the business processes? So this is just a great way. And again, it's just this under-provisioned computer for administrators or owners of content to understand how users are or are not engaging with their content. Let's see. So I think that actually, yeah, that brings us to Q&A.
Woo! That would be my job.
All right.
All right, ready? So earlier, you were talking about files within Teams, and someone said, so you can remove them, but can you move them, sort of like tabs across the top of a customized order?
You want to change the customized order of the tabs. Is that what I'm?
Yes.
Okay. So let's see. Yes.
So yeah, sort the tabs across.
There we go. I just moved pseudo Latin from over here to over here, and that is a file. Uses my absolute favorite feature of Microsoft Word, which is to open or equals lorem parenthesis, two values, close the parenthesis, and you get a whole bunch of fake Latin.
I was gonna say we're back to the fake Latin.
Fake Latin, man.
Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, if that didn't answer that, please clarify. I'm sorry, where was that? Also, okay, next. Can you have members of a channel that do not have access to all the other files and content in the team?
Members of a channel are going to have access to all of the content in the channel unless, and here's where this starts to become a SharePoint discussion, right? And this is, we're off the rails of quick wins, and we're starting to get into much more complex use case scenarios. SharePoint itself is the underlying file system for Teams, right? Again, by default, doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
SharePoint, though, allows you to do whatever you want with the permissions on the actual files. Teams then presents them into the channel under the Files tab. So Teams will not violate the permissions that are assigned in SharePoint. So if you have removed someone's access from a particular file in SharePoint, they might see that it exists because it's listed on the in the files repository, but they will not have access to open it.
That made sense, but it was so mind-boggling.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was
honestly, a lot of like back end.
And that's one of the tricks that we really struggle with as organizations move from crawl to walk to run. with Teams is that you have to remember it is multiple pieces of technology working together to present a unified solution. So our sensitivity labels that are on files, they don't necessarily create a sensitivity association for the team. However, there is actually a way to designate sensitivity for a team, but that only associates with the chat of it. It gets very complicated. So there's lots of pieces that underlie that you can use to give a tailored and granular experience inside the team itself.
Got it. Hope. I'm learning so much on this webinar. Okay. What are some ways to encourage my users to utilize what you showed us today?
All right, so this is about driving adoption and driving engagement, right? And one of the ways that we've seen folks do that is simply by delivering exclusive content into specific locations. What we have
through training or through
no, just exclusive content, as in like I'm not sending you the email with that content. That attachment will not be in an email. It's going to be in the team, and if you want to get it, you can come to the team and get it.
You can come to the team.
Yeah, absolutely. We've also seen reward-based scenarios, right? We use Hey Taco to reward people for doing things that are of merit or of value. And Hey Taco exists in Teams, right? You want to go redeem your tacos for some sort of like gift card or whatever. You're not going to do that in email, right? So we are encouraging people to come into Teams and engage with it. And I will tell you, we have been successful to the point where I actually have to remind myself to check email once a day.
I'll be honest, I do too. Like like no one emails me. Everyone Teams messages me if they need something. Like if they email something, I'm like scared because I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, probably the most common chat I get once a day is, did you see my email? And it's like, you know, 5 years ago, I got the email saying, did you see my chat? Right? So the paradigm has fully shifted. And it's great.
Okay. So when co-authoring in Teams, can you lock down specific content to prevent people from editing what you don't want them to touch?
If you are in a specific file, the file itself is already open, right? Now you can do a couple of things.
And do you make those edits in SharePoint, like you said, or do you do them in?
So I'm a big fan of using the tools natively. If you have something where you're going to be presenting a document at a certain time, I like to use the chat function to notify people who are also in the file that I'm going to be doing it at a given time. There is a nuclear option, or long-term
nuclear option, everyone.
Nuclear option. Don't do this.
What is it?
You can check the file out like you've been able to do in SharePoint for 20 years, but there's a reason why that's hiding here under more and is not natively presented to the users.
So you wouldn't suggest it?
I don't. It has its place, right? You're going to go to present to the board of directors and you don't want somebody making live edits. That might be the place.
Maybe.
But the historical problem with checkout is that you are now the only person who can edit that file until you check it back in, and you check it out and go on vacation, and I need it.
Nope.
Right.
You screwed. Great point. What is your favorite way to use self-chat? I like this one.
Ooh, actually, no, it really is the loop components.
I say self-chat is so undermined. Like or underrated, I should say. Like I just learned how to do that, and I was like,
so like
all my to-do lists.
We talked about like you can't promote a chat to a team, and one of the limitations that you have in a chat is that yes, you can add tabs, but when I'm chatting with myself, I don't have that. So anything that I'm going to do as a chat with myself is either going to be dropping a file into this so I can come back and edit it later, or pulling up a loop component. And again, you can see these loop components, they are live, but they have to sync back to loop headquarters, if you will. But I can actually take a file from my OneDrive, and yes, that means I can get to it anywhere. But if I really just desperately need to remind myself to work on that file later, I can send myself that file in my personal Teams chat, and now that file is also going to be here under my files that I have shared with myself. So It's really just an easy way for me to keep up to date with the stuff that I have as my working list. And that's really what it is for me. It's my working list.
Yeah. Okay. So when you post when you post in multiple channels, what happens if there's people that are in some and not others?
Ooh, that's a good question. And honestly, it's one I haven't really played too much with. So let's see. I think I left Carl open over here. Oh, nope, that's not Carl. That's another situation. Let me see. Did I have another? Oh yeah, right. Carl is open inside this web browser over here. And hey, look at that. Somebody's trying to chat with Carl. Look at that. We added him to the X900 review crew. So let's see. Annual Christmas party. Carl's now saying it sounds super awesome. And it does not cross post back to the original place because remember, these are not necessarily people who have the same level of access. So we may be putting a notification out to both groups, but we may be encouraging a different level of participation back based on what group they're in. And if I didn't say it, and I don't think I did, a team is a Microsoft 365 group. When you create a team, you are creating content in SharePoint, you are creating the team that surfaces this information. The team itself has an email address, all of the team elements of it, right? We can get the email address of a particular channel and send content in. I actually do a product announcements roundup statement every.
Yeah, you send them to
periodically. And I don't log into Teams to send it. I just keep an open running email. And when I get enough stuff in there that I think it's worthy of sending in, I hit send and that then comes into Teams.
Huh. Okay. Last one as of now,
All right.
Unless everyone else wants to chime in one. So with all the tools you've covered today, what would you say? Ooh, this is a big one.
Uh-oh.
What would you say the internal purpose of email is, and is it dead?
Ooh, email is dead. Email is dead. Email is dead. In fact, I wrote a blog about that years ago. Email is dead, right? So Microsoft has for several years talked about the alignment of rings for communication, right? You have your inner ring, your outer ring, and your public ring. And there may be additional rings to it based on how you're aligning your tool sets. Your inner ring are the people you communicate with and collaborate with on a day-to-day basis. These are the people that I have to be successful with right now. Those are either chats or they are teams. Email is a little bit more formal. It's a little bit more public facing. It's a little bit slower in terms of how we're able to process response, right? If I send an email, it's basically a one-way communication. I'm going to hope for a response, or it's a very formal thing where I've sent in something that's been officially requested. But Teams is chat. You and I are chatting. We could be having this conversation in Teams, although it might take a lot longer, right? So as we collaborate throughout the day, we're going to be sending files back and forth in Teams. And again, with sending files in Teams, we're not sending multiple copies of a file with draft V2, final. No, please don't edit it again. I swear to God, if you have to final, exactly. None of that happens, right? We have one file with one set of version history on it.
Wow, that was such an adamant answer. I know. I was like, you were like ready for that one. All right. So we did get one more. So if you link a Dropbox to Teams, will those files be searchable in the Compliance Center for auditing?
Okay. We're bolting on additional controls and things.
He went with like full thing. He was ready.
Again, Teams allows you to use multiple components of the Microsoft 365 stack. And that also then means if you're using them, you also need to have security controls in place for them, right? So if I'm using Box or if I'm using Dropbox, I'm then going to start looking as an administrator to figure out what controls I can extend from Defender for Cloud Apps into that solution to ensure that I'm not losing data through that solution. And if I look at my Defender for Cloud Apps environment, which do I have it open?
I was trying to picture that. I was like, that was a lot of different apps.
Yeah, we're running out of time. Can we do it?
We can do it. We have 1 minute. I'll be super speedy in my exit.
So if I want to add control for what's in Box, and it's a corporate account, and I've got 150 users in Box, I'm going to want to exercise corporate controls of that app set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my app governance. I believe that's where I do it. And I can actually set control. I'm more comfortable with the older view. So let me do that real quick.
All right, while he's doing that, since we're super short on time, thank you everyone for joining us today. So you will, I don't know what camera, we have like
That camera.
Yeah. You will receive a follow-up with a recording to this webinar by tomorrow. Please be sure to follow us on YouTube, social media, check our events page for upcoming webinars. We have one next week on Power BI, which I'm super excited about, which you'll also get an email. And did you figure it out?
Yes. So if you have an administrative account in that third-party file solution, you would add that and the connected apps in Defender for Cloud Apps, and that would give you visibility into the files and the digital estate where it exists there as well. Okay.
Okay.
Under the wire.
If you have any, if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You already have my email, or I can connect you with an engineer or the appropriate AE. And like I said, register for our webinar next week. And thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you all have a great rest of your day and weekend. And this is new for me. I'm like, we're on camera.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.